So Matt and I kind of are brainstorming our Portland class because we realized that we want to teach together as a tandem class, or tandem instructors.
We're both kind of talking about the same thing, so.
Yeah.
So I'm showing Matt like what my tack on it, so that we can decide which is the best way to kind of put the material together. And so like right now I'm just running through like just the few notes and slides that I was going to show during my portion of it, but you know, maybe we can find a better way to kind of bring up the material for Portland.
Cool.
Yeah, and then this is what's so cool about being with world-class instructors is you can organically create a class like this because they're just so knowledgeable about everything. And so it's just fun to be like, hey, you know what? We got to do something that's a little bit better. So, yeah.
Cool.
This is going to be the better way. I can already feel it.
No way. All right, so like I wanted to show these before and afters, right? So that they can see exactly what a polarized will do for skies and for reflections, and then NND. Because for me, it's just like they're really basic examples that really help out a lot. And then the exposure factor. I have one for like restop and like if you add up like that stack filters, but everyone tends to use a 10 stuff, so I just want to.
Do you ever do
the calculator?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got app. Which app do you use?
What's it called? I use slower shutter.
Okay, I don't use that one. I use like LE timer.
Yeah, so basically you type in your neutral density filter, so 10 stop.
Yeah.
You type in whatever the shutter speed that your camera read without the filter, which let's say was 2/50th of a second, and it gives you your new.
Nice.
And it's got
a timer.
So you just hit set timer and then it just starts counting for you.
That's awesome. Is it free?
I think it's like $1.
That's worth it.
And Matt, can you explain the app and what that does and what it is exactly?
So it's called slower shutter, and the idea is when you put neutral density filters on, your shutter speeds change. So what you do is, like, let's say I know I want to use a neutral density filter, right? So I set my camera down and don't put the filter on, don't do anything. Set my aperture priority. Press the shutter halfway down, it gives me a shutter speed. The camera's basically saying, to properly expose this photo, I'm going to use 250th of a second. So then you take the app, you plug in 250th of a second, you plug in the density of filter that you're going to use, and it gives you a new shutter speed, and you set your camera to that.
Oh, okay.
So that basically those exposures will look the same. To one of them's longer. So one of them allows movement to go through, and the other one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I come from a different world where if I'm going to do a landscape photograph, right? So I was always taught, like, okay, if my landscape photograph that I want to expose is here, and I'm here, and I bring up my light meter, and I take a reading here, it's essentially going to be the same lighting over yonder, right? So does the same technique apply when I'm using a handheld light meter? So I use my light meter, I get a reading at 250 f/16, ISO 200, right? So I dial that in my camera, and then I use a calculator, and it'll look the same. Cool.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
And speaking of that, actually, not to intrude your guys' conversation about what you're doing in Portland, are there any other apps and stuff that you guys use on a regular basis for your photography?
I use Sunseeker.
And what does that do?
Sunseeker is this one right in the middle.
Look away. Look away.
Alright? And then what it does, if you look at it, here, let me go into 3D view. Here, let's look out the front of the bus. It gives you the path of the sun.
Oh, that's so cool.
Oh, wow.
So you know at what point, at what time of the day, where the sun's going to be.
Cool.
So if you get to a shoot, if you're going to go shoot sunset somewhere, and you get there 2 hours early, you know where the sun's going to go down at.
Oh, okay.
And you know exactly what time. So if you maybe are shooting into a mountain, well, sunset is not going to be, if sunset's at 6:30 p.m., sunset is in that mountain, it's not going to be at 6:30.
Okay.
It's going to go behind the mountain earlier, and that'll help you figure out when.
Cool. And Jen Allwood is saying that's super cool. And here we have Miss Sue Bryce.
She Periscope bombed us.
She Periscope.
I use in a pinch a lot of times. It's like if I'm on set or on location, or if I have a big problem and I can't get to my meter, I run something called Cinemeter, and it doesn't work by hair like Sue's working it, but it does give me a lot of awesome things here. So I can actually.
That's a good way to incorporate that.
And Darissa, that was Sunseeker is what Matt was using. And what are you using again?
I'm using something called Cinemeter. So if you focus on here, right? For those of you who are more familiar with like waveforms and stuff, I can just quickly get a form of the scene that I'm about to shoot to kind of get an idea of what the exposure levels are and where I'm at in terms of what I will be shooting. That way, if I can't take a reading, or I don't have my monitor on me, or I'm away from my camera, I can rip out my phone really quickly and just get a general idea. And then when I get back to my camera, get back to my meter, take an actual reading via spot meter or something like that. So it's a really nice tool.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty accurate. I prefer a handheld meter a little bit more because they tend to be more accurate, more specific. But that's pretty good in pitch.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, let me see what else I have. Do you guys have any? If you guys are watching us at home, do you guys have any questions for us? Or at home, I guess, on the app. Someone whose name is My Name Means Life says you guys are great.
Nice.
Which is nice. Thank you. I guess a couple questions I have. So you guys both work in Photoshop pretty often, right?
Yeah.
So how did you guys? What are your guys' favorite parts of Photoshop? How did you learn what you guys do with Photoshop, basically?
A lot of trial and error.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a, Photoshop's a huge program, so I guess the one thing I would say is find somebody that you kind of like to learn from, and then just follow them, because what's going to happen is there's literally 1,000 different ways to do things in Photoshop, and so if you follow everybody out there, you get confused.
Yeah.
Because one person would say, I adjust the brightness of my photo this way. Another person would say, the way you must adjust brightness is this way. And you just get confused. So, I mean, honestly, if whoever asked that's a photographer, I would say, close Photoshop and open Lightroom.
Okay.
Because Lightroom is so much better for photography, and you don't have 60 ways to do things. You have just a basic set of sliders. You can never hurt the photo. You're never you're never going to damage your photo. It's just, I'd start with Lightroom first. Only go to Photoshop if you absolutely need it.
I think the best way that I ever had explained to me, and it's kind of stuck with me my entire life so far, is that Lightroom is for asset management. It's for adjusting photos in a non-destructive way. So if you want to control your brightness, your contrast, your saturation, you want to crop it, you basically want to work with the photo in every meaningful way possible without hurting your photo. That's Lightroom. The minute you want to start moving pixels, you want to switch someone's head out, you want to start getting rid of blemishes, and you want to start doing things to the photograph, that's what Photoshop's for. That's what it's very, very capable and really good at doing.
Yeah.
So when you get to Photoshop, right, a couple tools that I would really recommend learning is the patch tool. It's probably the one tool that I use the most ever inside of Photoshop. It's a great tool. It's a phenomenal tool. I use the clone stamping not nearly as much as I use patches, because it's what it does is it takes a clone of an area and then it heals it with the surrounding area, so that it actually gets a nice blend when you try to get rid of stuff. Okay. The next thing you do is if you have a gas problem like Matt's about to have.
That would be the whoopee cushion. Tools of the trade for the best.
I like
Victor.
Oh, sorry. No, I was throwing up all day yesterday. I didn't have that problem. No, the other tool that I use a lot is learning how to edit in layers. That's the first step. It's the first thing you should ever learn in Photoshop, is just how to make a layer and how to use adjustment layers and how to do all of that first. And then once you kind of learn how to do that, you'll learn that dropping things on layers and changing opacities, that just becomes a part and parcel of using Photoshop. In all honesty though, I think Matt will probably agree, 80% of my time working on a photograph, or 90% is in Lightroom, and then maybe 10% is in Photoshop.
And something Matt said earlier is the best way to learn is finding someone that you really value their work, or that does something similar to what you want to be doing.
Yeah.
Who is that for you guys? Really quick, because we have to wrap it up, because you guys are going to go live soon.
Who is that for me?
Yeah. Right?
Tough question. Victor.
That's actually not fair because I learned Photoshop back when it was Photoshop 5. So we're in 2014 or 2015 now, and so I've kind of gotten a lot of instruction. When I used to work for a photo studio in San Diego. They're still around, Studio M La Jolla, or Studio M. They're an amazing studio. And I learned a lot of Photoshop from Michael, and Michael was a great mentor, and he's a great person that taught me a lot about the craft, a lot about business, and a lot about just Photoshop. And I remember we used to buy Photoshop books together and like try to hash out techniques and stuff. And so I learned I was unfortunate in the sense that I had a great mentor, and I had a great person who said, hey, you know what? You can try these techniques, and we explored different Photoshop techniques together. And then when I got to Lightroom, actually, Matt started kind of being like one of the premier instructors about Lightroom. So I learned a lot of my tips and tricks from actually Matt, like, watching him.
Love this.
So learning Lightroom from Matt, and then like just because I had a relationship with Matt when I worked for a different company, it just made it very simple for me to follow his logic and follow how he taught. So
yeah, I think I might have taken it too literally. Like right now, so I would say the people that I learned from over the years, growing up in Photoshop, Ben Wilmore, Dave Cross. I always watch Joel Grimes.
Yeah.
I love to see how Joel Grimes does stuff.
Dave Cross is awesome.
Yeah, Dave Cross is awesome.
Awesome. Well, you guys are about to go live, so we're going to wrap up this Periscope, but we'll be back Periscoping soon with Jasmine and Sue, and these two again. Again, this is Matt and Victor. We're on the Photo Week 2015 bus. We'll be back. Bye.